Hi, this is Deepak, and you are watching Simcoe Community Media. During the Community Safety Committee meeting held on February 6th at the Barrie City Hall, Council members and school board representatives engaged in detailed discussions on various safety and infrastructure issues related to schools in Barrie. Barrie Mayor Alex Nuttall emphasized the importance of collaboration between the city, school boards, and other stakeholders to address safety in and around schools.
We are going to be finishing our conversations in the next couple of months around KPIs. I think that this is one of the places that we can come up with a community safety KPI. I don't know what it is exactly as I sit here and say that. I don't know if it's unlit intersection or unlit crossings, either lit or guarded in one way or another. I don't know the exactness of the KPIs, but when I'm thinking about community safety, it's if not number one, it's in the top two or three in the city that you hear about as members of council, and that I hear about in the mayor's office.
Representatives of the Simcoe County District School Board and Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board shared insight into the challenges and initiatives related to school infrastructure and safety programs.
And I'll use an example. I had one appeal here in Barrie, and it was they had to actually cross Hearst, and they had to do so at a non-controlled stop, and the parent just thought that was unsafe. And it happens in the urban centers. Sometimes the children have to do the look both ways and go. And so if you're looking at a way to encourage walking, you need to make sure that the children have access to a controlled stop and walkways all the way from point A to point B. So
Ward 4 Councillor Amy Cursor raised concerns about the effectiveness of the current safety measures and the potential for enhanced strategies, including the use of technology and better planning processes. At the end of the 2 hour long meeting, the Council collectively decided to move forward with a series of actions, including the establishment of a working committee comprising city staff and school board representatives to address these issues systematically. The committee will focus on developing a cohesive plan that includes the deployment of crossing guards, the review of school bus safety measures, and the strategic placement of automated speed enforcement cameras in school zones. The following is the video of the meeting deliberation.
First item's a discussion with the representatives of the school boards. I would like to welcome the representatives from Simcoe County District School Board and Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board to the Community Safety Committee meeting. I'd like to have the representatives of the school boards introduce themselves to the committee. And Mr. Dance, we'll start with you.
Good afternoon, John Dance, Director of Education.
Perfect.
Thank you. Andrew Kukin, Manager of Planning.
Good afternoon, Corey Van Nispen, Superintendent of Business and Facility Services.
Good afternoon, Christine Hyde, Manager of Planning and Properties, Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board.
good afternoon, Alan Morrison, Controller of Planning, Facilities, and Student Transportation.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Kuyak, Assistant Superintendent of Safe and Accepting Schools within the Catholic School Board.
Perfect. So besides the two of you, thank you. Is everybody else from the public board? Okay, so two representatives from all three. Got it. Perfect. Okay. Thank you for that. Members of committee and members of council who are present, a number of items related to school safety have been discussed during committee meetings over the past year. I thought I would mention a few of these to help kind of guide the questions and discussions through the school board. This is just obviously a suggestion, but kind of a summary of what's been talked about. And I had a meeting with staff about this. So this is how we got to this list. Number one was kiss and rides. Number two was parking in and around the schools. Crossing guards, lay-by lanes on public roads, review of development applications in relation to there being enough schools, new schools, including design of them, consolidation of school elements between two school boards, and as well as automated speed enforcement cameras in school areas. The second referred matter is also related to school and student safety. And by second referred matter, I believe it's the Grey Highlands one, right? So if there are discussions that come up regarding school bus armed cameras, I will allow the leeway because it's all one item. So and it doesn't trigger a conflict for anybody. that I know of. No. So you can ask the questions on this one as well, and then save any amendments and votes individually for the other one if you have them. So members of committee, given that I anticipate a number of questions and discussions on these topics, I would ask members of committee and council present to try to ask only questions that have not been asked by others members of council, unless it's an elaboration that is tangibly different than what was already asked or commented on. So we will start just as a Q&A. There's no formal presentation, I believe.
I'd like to just ask a clarification for process here
Yeah.
about the items I held for grade, the letter.
Yeah.
So we're discussing that separately?
You can discuss it now because it's materially similar. If you do have any amendments on it, separate to this. So ignore this right now. If you, let's say you want to write a letter back to Grey Highlands or have staff investigate that, then just save that amendment when we finish this.
Okay, then I will save it till we finish this.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So any members of committee first, do you have any questions of the staff members present? Mayor Nuttall, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for joining us today. And I think the conversation that we as a city have been having over the last, I guess, 18 months or so has really maybe started in looking at some opportunities for programming inside of schools whose gymnasiums or classrooms are open, and really morphed after that into the safety side. I guess from our perspective, and we were actually talking about this last night, the number of crosswalks in the city that are in front of schools that don't have any lighting associated with them, or near schools and don't have lighting. And if I can go to the Catholic School Board, St. John Vianney is an example on Baldwin Lane. And then we have, well, there's a number of them around, but from the school board's perspective, would those unlit crosswalks not be a great place to have some sort of crossing guard program from the school? Like if kids have to get across and they've got to cross these unlit walkways, does the school boards see any value in having crossing guard programs there?
So just to guide the conversation, we'll start with the SCDSB and then move on to Catholic Board for all questions.
Could I just ask for clarification? Sorry, are you speaking about crosswalks on the municipal roadway?
Crosswalks on municipal roadway in front of schools.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I'll start, I guess, the conversation on this one. We've never been asked to, invited to, been included in any study with regards to crosswalks in front of our schools.
Simcoe, Muskoka.
It's definitely something that we could investigate together, but knowing that we don't have oversight of the municipal roadways and infrastructure.
Okay, so when I was a child at Allendale Heights, there was one lit, one unlit. They're both lit now. One's at the top of the hill on Bayview Drive. The other one is directly in front of the school. There was a crossing guard that stepped out in the road that was part of a school run program. Yeah, what was it called? Patrols. It's the safety patrollers, yes. They got to go to Wonderland once a year and dances, okay. I clearly don't dance, so I went to Wonderland. So are those programs still running today?
I was a principal at St. Monica's for a number of years, so I can speak to the process the way it is, works with the city of Barrie right now, is that city of Barrie's police will reach out to us and offer to do bus patroller and street patroller training. So as an exercise within the school, our responsibility would be to go to our community, ask our students if there are students interested in being a bus or a street patroller. We engage in the training, and then the City of Barrie Police would come and do on-site training to either show them how to do it on a bus, or if we designated locations where we were going to have foot patrollers, then that would be a part of the training. We've moved away from, just from my basic experience, away from the street patroller because of the liability we were putting students under. We have noticed, I noticed in my school community that the traffic was getting out of hand, and I didn't want to put students at risk.
May I continue, Mr. Chair? So St. Monica's, I was going to stay away from this, but you brought it up, so I'm going to now speak about it. My kids go to St. Monica's. There is a roundabout for parking for the amount of vehicles that would have been necessary at the point that that school was built. Maybe. The traffic patterns have changed in terms of the amount of people walking versus driving, all of those things. So the roadway is busier. The parking's out of control. I'm part of the problem, gonna be honest with you. And there's an unlit crosswalk. And there's no safety patrollers. There's no nothing. And so I look at that as, A, we're not planning for safety in terms of the front end, right? Because the capacity of the property does not address the need that the use is creating. And if you weren't the school boards, anyone else would have to deal with that. Then there's the actual programs that existed that were discontinued because of the liability. And I assume that that was the answer. But discontinuing those programs because of liability has only created a larger liability, being that there's now nothing instead of something. And so we've also had I don't believe there's a written appeal on record from a school for any sort of signals being put in place where there's unlit intersections between pedestrians and vehicles. And so as the mayor, but like, I kind of want to throw that out the window right now. And like, as a parent, I sit there and go like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. So how do we, as a city, work with you two as school boards? And there's more than just the two, but you're the two big ones, to address those issues going forward and come up with a way to deliver safety in front of schools. Because like, we're doing our part as far as I can tell. Like, we're putting up the radar cameras, you know, we're even changing the times of the 40 zones to expand them, make it clearer, more simple. We're asking every time there's a site plan for more parking to be set aside for the kiss and ride or whatever we call it. And at the same time, we're looking at lighting around many of these places, but we're doing this in unison, and it needs to be in partnership. So how do you see yourselves partnering in the process of making school zones around the city of Barrie safer? Or is the answer not our problem?
CDSP.
Thank you. And, we are actively always, the safety of our students is at the forefront of everything we do. Full stop on that. We are constantly, this is something constantly that we are reviewing. We do have a great relationship with City of Barrie staff. We do have that open communication. We do have that open dialogue. We do have site meetings where if there is a specific concern or issue that is raised, we will meet on site with city staff, with our transportation consortium. We will view what's going on, make recommendations, make alterations if necessary, if we can there. But that it's each one of our schools, each one of our school communities has its own nuances, its own little differences. There isn't a cookie cut answer for each one of these schools. So each one of the administrations work with their community. We educate, we inform, we encourage, particularly the walking and the active community. But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. It is all of us working together to ensure that our students are getting to school safe.
So, sir, just before we continue it, I agree with you that there are relationships and there are good relationships between the school boards and the City of Barrie staff. There's also been bad relationships, right? And I think part of recognizing that is saying that we need to get those out of the way to ensure we're all doing our best to ensure student safety. I had a ward meeting in Ward 6 on Ferndale Drive where we were standing, and actually people brought their own lawn chairs to sit and have a conversation about this exact subject. And we were kicked off the property by the administration. We were asked to leave because it was inappropriate to be having a political conversation on school board property. Our political conversation was, how do we slow down the traffic for the kids in front of the school? So I don't want it left to each administrator around the city. I don't want our staff to have, you know, how many schools are in the City of Barrie? 50, something like that?
Yeah.
Around about? I don't want to have 50 different conversations. I'd like a set of standards and guidelines, and I'd like a partnership. I think we've shown that we're ready to even be part of the funding answer by having our staff looking at this patroller and adult patrollers in front of schools in very difficult places. But we need partners at the school boards as well. It can't just be the city acting unilaterally on this subject. So how is it that you, the school boards, can come to the table with us to develop a plan of student and, quite frankly, adult safety as well, and vehicular safety as much as cycling and walking in and around our schools?
I will, for a procedures perspective, I'll let the SEDSB at the Simcoe County District School Board answer the follow-up. And then once you're done, because it would be unfair for you not to be able to answer once the mayor updated, and then we'll go to Simcoe Muskoka.
Thank you for the question. What you're talking about is a financial commitment that if it's adult patrollers, which I know this community has explored before and has not gone with that. We've had very positive working relationship with the City of Barrie with regards to pedestrian activated stoplights in front of a number of our locations. They work very well. Crossing guards are not a responsibility of a school board. They're not part of that. They're part of the Highway Traffic Act. And that's where we're not funded for crossing guards. And as was mentioned by my colleague down the table with regards to students, we are loath to put students in an unsafe position as student crossing guards in those situations.
Simcoe Muskoka Catholic.
Thank you. Just building on some of the points Corey had mentioned before, we have a similar process. We have a school site traffic review committee when there are issues identified in different municipalities. So we have a number of different departments that are part of the committee, but we have leads. Kevin and I are both part of that, along with our health and safety officer, and we would get in contact with the municipality and we would go on a site visit and we would look at our side from the site perspective and look at what enhancements can be made, and then have the municipality look at it from their perspective, and then we would come together collaboratively and look at what the recommendations would be, short, medium, long term, because we know some of them might have a funding impact. We may not have resources for that at the time, but maybe there's some things that could be implemented right away. I think there are things that we can look at through the Ontario Active School Travel policy recommendations that came out last year around the active school travel zones. We could look at those together and come up with comprehensive plans for the school travel, the school community safety zones. And we could maybe just collaboratively work with city staff to look at how we can continuously work together and improve the process.
So I love that answer because it shows me a path forward in terms of public servants working together. And this is going to be the last thing I say before others do. I like the idea of the school boards and city staff forming some sort of working committee to address this issue and having a report back to this committee, recognizing you have your own oversight bodies and you've got to, deal with that on your side as well. And the things that you just talked about, I think, are some of the things, if not many of the things that need to happen. There's also initiatives that we've already been working on that need to be addressed there as well. So thank you for providing some positive feedback on where you see the opportunities.
Thank you. Any other members of committee? Councilor Corson.
Welcome to Barrie City Hall. I am very excited to have you here. I have been looking forward to this day, and I'm going to ask you probably a barrage of questions, but I want to preface that with, I think that I'm learning. So this is information I'm looking for so I can know where we are, all of us are, because as the conversation goes, the problems that are happening in our school zones with cars, I think it's self-perpetuating because parents don't feel safe sending their kids to school because of the issues with traffic in the school zones. So they drive their kids to school, which creates problems in school zones. So I'm really interested in digging into the active transportation piece that might actually solve some of the issues of the chauffeuring to school, the rushed parents, the all the things that happen. I live in a school zone, as I complain quite often around the table. I get blocked in my driveway. I get sworn at. I know what happens in school zones. It turns into a bit of a war zone. So I can totally appreciate that. So prefacing that, bunch of questions, and this is in learning. I don't want to mean to sound like I'm grilling you because I would love the opportunity to work on all this together because I think that we both have a responsibility to play to make sure our kids are safe. I always tell people I have skin in the game. So, it's good to have safe school zones. I understand that you, as a Simcoe County District School Board, I'm sorry, the Catholic School Board, I'm not quite sure, just in my research I've done, that there was some work with the Ontario Active School Travel Organization some years ago. I know in 2018, they did a study in 13, I'm just reading this, 13 urban, suburban, and rural schools in Ontario. And they found that school travel planning programs was a cost-effective intervention that contributed to significant change in school travel behavior and provided substantial economic, health, and environmental benefits. And I might add that I think that actually active transportation adds to safe school zones. Guelph, which is always compared to Barrie, saw a 14% increase in walking, and I should say active. I couldn't find any numbers on active transportation as cycling or public transit, but they found that there was up to an 18% reduction in driving in some schools. And that's a big deal when you're talking about school safety around schools. And I understand that the school board, the Simcoe County District School Board, correct me if I am wrong on any of this, had worked with the health unit in bringing this program to Barrie. Can you speak to Simcoe County District School Board? Could you, anyone want to take this one? What happened to this program? Is the program ongoing? How did it end? Are you going to revisit it? If anyone could answer.
And just to clarify, sorry, before the answer, both school boards will answer all questions.
Okay.
SESB first, Simcoe, Muskoka. Even if it's not for you, Councilor Corser, for the benefit of others around the table.
For sure.
And I can start, and I'm sure Christine will follow up. But yes, we have been part of a pilot project with the health unit.
Okay.
There's 17 schools involved. We've done parent surveys. We actually worked, city was part of that initiative as well. I myself was not on that committee, but we have staff that are, so any specifics regarding questions and metrics, I would have to take that back. But yeah, we've started things like or have in the past developed templates for Media statements, information letters, educational aspects and programs as well, promotional banners involve the police, local police where we could. So it has been happening and it is still ongoing. So it's not
Okay.
something that, we can come to a resolution overnight, but it is something that we are endeavoring to be included in.
Oh, that's good news.
Sorry,
Oh,
Councilor
sorry,
Muskoka.
my apologies.
No problem. So we are also involved with this through the On the Move program with the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. They are the lead for us on this. We are looking at onboarding 3 schools right now. None of them are in Barrie at the moment, from the ones that have availability, and it's also based on the resource availability from the health unit nurses. But they do follow the Ontario Out of School Travel model, and there are a number of resources on their website that you can take a look at. They have a number of things that the municipalities can do on their end as well, like the signage, supporting Drive to 5 and the communications. So that's definitely something that we have knowledge of and that we are participating in.
Yeah, I just actually just discovered this. I've heard of it, but I just actually dove into the website today and they have excellent resources. That Excel spreadsheet of like return on investment and all the different things that were on there. I was really impressed. And that would be really great to actually maybe have a conversation of working in concert with that. And just a few more questions, just so I understand where things are now. Is the school boards, I'll just say inclusively, the school boards collecting data on how many students use active transportation instead of using school buses or being chauffeured to schools? Do you have actually any tracking, any numbers on that?
SCDSP.
We know how many should be walking and taking the bus, that we do know. We don't track metrics on a day-to-day basis. If it is done, it's done at a school level. We're more interested in dealing with where there's complaints and hotspots.
Because it'd be really helpful. I'm a data person, so we like to have those numbers to actually see what kind of monster we're wrestling would be, and sorry, again.
We also don't specifically track that, but that is something through the On the Move program. If they were looking at the school level, they would look at keeping in mind that, kindergarten students and they walk from the car to the school, they might raise their hand that they walk to school. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I could see that. They walked a long way to school. Yeah. And I've heard rumors of, again, no proof. I've heard rumors that some schools have had to actually fundraise to get bike racks. And I was surprised by that. I thought that that was something that would be funded as part of school infrastructure, but I've heard that there's been fundraising efforts to get bike racks at schools. And I'm wondering what resources at the board or school level are currently allocated towards promoting and supporting active transportation, as in i.e. bike racks or anything like that, that would be like make it more accessible for kids to actually use those to lock up a bike or.
Thank you. So I can say that when I don't have the full picture at this point in time, because we didn't know we were going to talk about bike racks in particular, but I do know when we have construction projects, build a new school, put addition on schools and whatnot, bike racks are often installed. Depending on where the work's occurring. I cannot speak to whether there has been additional bike racks fundraised for at the school level.
Perfect. And just before I let Simcoe Muskoka answer, Councilor Corser, that is an excellent question. And I think it's fair, and that's fair that you don't have the answer, but it's fair that it's asked because it relates to the uptake of active transportation affects safety, reduces volume. And fortunately, I believe that Simcoe Muskoka has their comptroller here. So maybe a little bit more awareness of numbers. Again, maybe not down to the specifics of bike racks, but I was wondering what your responses would be.
We supply, similar to the public board, we supply as part of our capital bills. I believe it's 2 bike racks with every school. And I'm not sure the quantity of bikes in each bike rack, but it is possible that schools do go out and fundraise for additional bike racks. We don't track that. That would go through our procurement department. So they would just work directly with them. So I'm unaware of how many might actually be securing additional bike racks. So
Ms. Hyde, you put your hand up.
We are looking at when we are doing new builds where the bike racks are located to make sure that they have passive surveillance and that they are following the standards so that more people would be utilizing them. I am aware that in some other jurisdictions, maybe the region has a fund set aside annually that schools can apply to obtain extra bike racks. So maybe that's something that we could have further discussions on.
Perfect, thank you. And Mr. Dance, I saw your hand.
Thank you. We've also had situations where bike racks have been fundraised for because they are doing that so that they can have a place to park their bikes as part of their active processes inside the school. So it's maybe part of their school goal. And so, for example, all of our schools are involved in OFIA, Healthy Schools. That might be part of their school goal, and they have a fund to draw on for some of that. But I have seen it in some schools where fundraising has taken place in order to get additional bike racks to support the additional kids that are riding to school with bikes. Because with promotion, we've seen it grow. I believe one of the high schools in the western part of the county have done that and increased the number of bike racks tenfold because of the number of kids riding the bike.
Do you have a follow-up on bike racks, Council Course, for any other questions? I just had
I
one
have a few questions, yes.
on bike racks.
Actually, I just have a follow-up with that and
Go ahead.
to follow up on that, well, I just would that, I'm surprised that fundraising would have to be involved with something like that because I figured that fundraising was more of a softer kind of like for like school trips or something like that as opposed to infrastructure. Is that common practice that there has to be fundraising for items that are actually part of the schoolyard? Is that was just kind of surprising to me that fundraising was an issue for active transportation supports.
So sometimes schools do fundraise for specific items for that they feel would be an enhancement to their facility. That may be playground equipment. And in this case, the example provided by the director, if they have an initiative where they feel that they don't have sufficient of X, they're fundraising so that they can have X plus in order to meet the goals that they have for their specific community.
Okay, thank you. And also moving on from bike racks, so the,
did you
Is
want
that
us to respond to that?
oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, we have what's called a school initiated project. Most of the schools take advantage of that school initiated project process, and they do fundraise for all sorts of things, including playgrounds, bike racks, outdoor learning centers. They fundraise for whatever they can, because although boards have funding, that funding is earmarked for other things. It's operational money for snow removal, for all the other pieces there. So we don't have additional funds to support needs that maybe the school councils might want to support through fundraising. So it's quite popular in our board to use the school initiated project form to be able to support needs that are specific to each school.
Okay, thank
Perfect.
you.
Mr. Morrison, you brought up about like separating buses and cars, which is great. And I want to use another example of another one of my alma maters, that's St. Joe's. Incredible design. Like that school was built what, in the 1980s, late 80s, early 90s. And I understand, I'm going to predict, I'm not an educator, but I'm going to predict it works well in high school design, maybe not elementary, because putting a bus through the back, like high school kids are either hanging out inside or go to the plazas or get in their cars and leave. They're not hanging out in the playground. So when you're cutting the playground with a driveway, you know, you're going to have, there's an added level of maybe risk. That said, school buses are only coming in and out for the most part, with the exception of field trips, twice a day. But is there an ability to maybe, and I understand that that design isn't going to fix the issue at the 50 plus existing schools, but I think one of the issues that I've heard, and again, a non-member of council will probably bring this up, but there's also issues with the schools that are yet to be built, where the same mistakes get made, the same mistakes of putting schools on arterials instead of a quieter area. the same mistakes of not having properly designed kiss and rides, not using that right of way. It's just left for grass. Like, wouldn't it be great if you do kind of like a parallel parking in front of the school and that's designated only for buses? Now they don't have to loop in and out. It's just a matter of teachers being able to contain students in the building and saying, okay, go to your bus now. Or if they're already outside, literally a management system. So I understand there's nuances there, but it's also the site plan design of when you guys are building school boards and working with the city and working with the landowners. We're building roads that are way too wide. So cars are traveling fast. We are living in a culture now where people want to use their SUV and truck to take people who the kids might live 3 blocks away, and doing that instead of doing the school bus system, which is definitely their choice. But the summary of all these small choices end up with this outcome. So not trying to villainize the choices of cars, not trying to villainize the choices of the landowners or the policy that we have, but all of these things together are concerning. So I guess my question for this is, have you gotten feedback from either school councils, parents, or even industry people that modern site plan designs that are kind of just industry standard are being problematic when building new schools? I guess that's how I'll frame the question.
Of course, they're problematic. As I said earlier, they're problematic because of the volume and there's only so many acres and many activities that have to occur on that. And the numbers of acres are dictated by the EDCs or whatever, the size of the building. There's, our property is restricted to certain sizes based on the size of the school. When you talk about St. Joe's, when you look at a typical secondary site, it's approximately a 15-acre site versus an elementary school site that might be 5 or 6 acres. So to be able to round about the school on a 15-acre site, if you think of the 3 high schools that we have, Joan of Arc, St. Joan of Arc is a similar design. It goes all the way around, and even St. Pete's, because it does too, it kind of skirts around the back as well. So that's the luxury of a secondary site. And you're also looking at older students that are more responsible for looking out for themselves. You cannot take that same approach. The approach needs to be separate kids and traffic. When you look at some of the creative ways of trying to do these things, we've experimented with a lay-by at one of our schools in Bradford. We did ask to try and do a lay-by here in the city, and we weren't allowed to do that here. The lay-by allows the buses to stay on the street. They don't come into the site, and the jury's out. We're still struggling at that site. I'd like to tell you that that's a wonderful solution, but that site is, and again, it's due to the volume of parents driving. It's still problematic, even though we've got the lay-by to isolate the bus traffic. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to volume and trying to access a very small site.
Just a very quick follow-up. The lay-by is kind of like that, like a bus lay-by, but in front of the school. And is this only supposed to be only used by buses? So basically the example I described earlier, but in proper.
That's exactly it, is that the lay-by is actually off of the residential street. And it does serve a certain number of buses. It is, we have an agreement with the town, and that it's signed so that it's only allowing buses in there at the 2 times of the day that are critical for us. And so it works fairly well from a bus standpoint. But as I said, it's not solving the problem with the volume.
And the challenges are parents are blocking in the buses? You said it's a challenge because of volume.
No, the bus is working actually quite well. It's the public side in which all the parents are coming in on the other side of the building. And so we've managed to isolate, but that's not solved the problem.
Got it.
So the idea of isolating the buses has not solved the problem at that school. And we were hopeful that it would.
Quick follow-up. It hasn't solved the problem, but has it been a net positive, net negative, or a wash?
I would say it's positive. We're in the early stages. That school is only in its 2nd or 3rd year, second, I think. And so, there's challenges with that. You have to come for Snow removal is always a challenge because you're on a municipal street and all of a sudden, how do you carve in that little extra amount in order to keep the bus lane or the bus lay-by clean? So we're working through some of the challenges, but I would say that it's positive at this point in time as far as the buses are concerned there.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you for that, SCDSB.
Again, we incur a lot on these items today. I mean, we're open to pretty much anything as long as we're, it's fitting the legislated site size and our benchmarks and so on. When it comes to site design, we're doing everything we can. We're here not the experts at traffic on school sites, but we engage our architects, traffic engineers, rely on city input. There's provincial associations from school boards that we rely on. So the architects work all across the province. This isn't only happening in the city of Barrie, it's happening everywhere. It's not unique to Simcoe County. So we're relying on best practices elsewhere. So we are trying different things. And I think to your point earlier, has it made it better? And that's what we're trying to see. We're seeing if we can make incremental improvements where we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And my last question will be very quick, and I'll hand it over to Deputy Mayor Thompson. This has been really productive, at least for myself, and I've heard comments from others. The last time and we need you guys at the table. Again, you have input that we don't get. You have context, you have reasons that, now we can understand better. And I think we need to have more of these discussions. You might not have an agenda in front of you, but one of the items that was held was establishing consistent stakeholder invites. That includes the Downtown Barrie BIA, Barrie Police. This is the committee it would come to. So I understand you guys are busy, and I understand that our schedules are hard to align. But I personally see value in not even every 6 months, not even every year, but would these two school boards commit to coming to City Hall to council, time to be established 3 times per term? So that would be once every 16 months. I didn't arbitrarily pick the number. I just think 4 is a little bit much and 3 is a good number. So it's once every 16 months, knowing that maybe the meeting gets called up a little bit quicker because there's something that we want input on each other, or maybe the meeting even gets delayed because everything's going so wonderfully. But once, 3 times every 4 years, is that something that, and you guys are decision makers, is that something that you would feel comfortable committing to this council?
I have no problem committing to that.
Perfect.
We can commit to that as well.
Okay, thank you. There might be an amendment later, or maybe I just got ahead of myself. So thank you for your time, Deputy Mayor Thompson. I'll turn over the floor to you.
Thank you, Chair Rose. And I apologize for the technical difficulties. I just had a question more to staff. Do we review the site plan approval of the school sites on an ongoing basis? There's just going to be a lot of collaborated effort working together. So it's probably a little, cart before the horse kind of deal. But I just think there's some opportunities for some of the drop-off areas to alleviate some of the traffic on school sites and stuff, and just how the school was granted their site plan approval. So I don't know if staff would be able to answer that, if it's something we review on an ongoing basis and make sure that the school are abiding by the site plan.
Ms. Banfield.
Through you, Chair Morales, to the Deputy Mayor. So absolutely, staff would look at site plan applications on new schools for sure. And then certainly when we have input from either counselors or members of the community, in particular when it seems like kiss and rides aren't operating properly or there's a particular congestion issue, we do pull out the site plan agreements. Some of them are actually quite dated, but we definitely do pull them out, and most often there is a reference to kiss and ride programs and those types of drop-offs or what have you. Then staff, if we did have a complaint, would send some of our traffic services team out to kind of look at the operations and just make sure that everything is working according to site plan. Most times we find that it is. In a few cases when potentially it's not, then again, as the school boards have said, we have a good connection with staff, and I usually go to either Christine or Andrew, depending on the school, and say, hey, can you look into this for us? We're seeing this issue, and then they deal with it through their administration. So there is lots of feedback loops for sure. And then as both school boards have said, when there's revisions to site plans and retrofits to schools, we definitely take a look at all of that again when the site plan's being redone.
Perfect.
You have a follow-up?
Thank you to the people that presented. That's all I have for questions but I just wanted to thank the panelists for showing up. I think a continued effort, and collaborated effort between city council and schools are better for all of us.
Perfect. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Councilor Corso, do you have what? Very quick. Okay, go ahead.
Before I lose my voice, I love to talk, but this is a little extreme. Okay, so quick question, follow-up question to the conversation we had earlier. It just kind of made me spark what we just had with staff. Do we have, I guess I would be asking communications, would we have, do we have partnership with Simcoe County Justice School Board with maybe if there's, when we're talking about active transportation, if there's some maybe a full court press of information to be shared, that a theme that they have for a month, like the school boards have mentioned, do we interact at all, or do we support that at all as the city?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Corser. Yes, as it was indicated earlier in the question and answers, the Simcoe, Muskoka and Simcoe County On the Move program is something that we did partner, and we were involved in that. And so you'll see that through the last term of council, and that work is ongoing.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Wasn't here last, new to the gig. So yeah, good to know. Thank you.
I'll send you some information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Corser. At this point, I'll go to non-members committee, and then if there's any questions that get inspired of members committee, I'll do a second cycle. Do we have any questions from non-members committee? Councilor Harris, Councilor Nixon, Councilor Riedma. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Chair Morales. And thank you, school board representatives. It's great to have you here. It's exciting actually to think that we could be collaborating to make our school zone safer, and also even to better educate folks on the perception of safety often is a greater concern than the actual safety. To that point, I'm wondering, to help us plan and be more effective as partners, do you have ratings? Do you have data that suggests what schools we should prioritize first? What school zones? We put ASE cameras on Big Bay Point and Ann Street. One is an area that borders Ward 8 and Ward 10, Ward 9. So we're just curious how you use data to inform decisions or feedback to us as council that our streets and maybe our school zones could be improved.
I would suggest that probably you're better prepared to know what I look at the example that you've got right now. You've got one of the cameras placed, I believe it's Willow Landing and St. Michael the Archangel on Big Bay Point Road. And so it's a major artery. It's actually 5 lanes. There's a turning lane in the middle as well. So chances are that if you've got 2 schools located on a major artery like that, that's where you should focus your attention. If you've got a school located on a smaller residential street, I would suspect that the smaller residential street somewhat controls the speed a little bit better, but it also probably creates a little more chaos as well because you've got people parked all over the place. So you're dealing there with not so much speed, but just the congestion. So I would say if you're focused on speed, I would look to the schools that are off major arteries.
Okay, great. So thank you. And certainly we can look to our data. Just curious, though, with safety being a priority, and as you mentioned, you don't have any data then that would suggest that, listen, if we're in Barrie, this is our key area where this school, this parent group is suggesting this is the area we should really focus on and our city partners should be involved. I'll tell you also one thing I'd be happy, and I'm glad here On the Move is still going. I thought On the Move was actually kind of mothballed, but I did the walkthrough at the Willow Landing, and I've asked several times, but I can't seem to get the report of what happened with that school, because I think there was very little uptake in Barrie as far as schools. I think it might have been two. I think the other one might have been Letitia. It was on Letitia, was it? No. Anyway, I won't guess, but it was a very small uptake. So glad if there's more uptake, that would be great. So if you could give me that report, that'd be awesome. I'd really appreciate understanding what came out of that day with the parents, school, the city staff who walked that district. That'd be wonderful. So maybe another item. So what are the easy wins? You're here with the city council, and we want to partner, we want to do better. Have you identified any early wins that as you see the city and the school board can work together to improve safety, or maybe even improve also? I think Mayor Nuttall touched on the use of facilities. We have lots of rec facilities in the city of Barrie, but most of them are schools. Are there any early wins as far as working better with municipal partners in Barrie?
Well, I'll defer to Christine on the community use piece, but on the safety piece, if you were looking at it, and because I handle the transportation portfolio, it gives me, I actually get a lot of appeals, and I actually go out and have to drive the various paths, walk pathways. And so when you're thinking through your planning your municipalities and such, make sure that there's controlled stops, make sure that there's always sidewalks. And those are the safety parameters, the two major safety parameters involved in getting kids safely walking to school, is making sure if they have to cross a street, and I'll use an example. I had one appeal here in Barrie, and it was they had to actually cross Hearst, and they had to do so at a non-controlled stop, and the parent just thought that was unsafe. And it happens in the urban centers. Sometimes the children have to do the look both ways and go. And so if you're looking at a way to encourage walking, you need to make sure that the children have access to a controlled stop and walkways all the way from point A to point B. So, and Christine, did you want to speak to the community use?
Sure. Thanks, Alan. We have been working with city staff on community use of schools, looking at requirements and going over where we have availability.
SCDSB? Oh,
Yeah, sorry, any early wins?
Sorry, I believe the pilot was implemented with the public board to start, but we do have some space reserved in case it's required.
And yeah, SCDSB.
Okay, I can fill you in on our side. As far as what would be helpful for us, and I think we have asked for this. I don't know how easy it is to get, but getting some data from your side as well in terms of complaints and where they're happening around schools and some metrics on that. We experience this ourselves. Sometimes you have 10 complaints, but it's coming from one address. So that can help you isolate where the problem actually is coming from. It might not necessarily be volume, but just one situation. That would be helpful for us. As far as the reciprocal agreement goes, I actually spoke with Mr. Bell yesterday. So we already have implemented a couple of locations that the city's utilizing for some evening programs. And they put in a request to expand that to another couple of schools for spring contracts. So we're just looking at that right now.
Great. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that sometimes the issue might not be as large as what some people make it out to be. And we wear that as well as counselors. You know, people will say this is unsafe, and we'll go, what's the data say? Well, the data say there's no incidents and there's no near misses, and therefore a change actually might be a risk than what it currently is. So thank you for that. I think that's where we could really maybe work together, because we have that same pressure of making a change for somebody, or maybe a small number, but really the effect might not be a net gain in safety. So I thank you for mentioning that. Just wondered also regarding crossing guards. I've heard it be mentioned that I know it's still a program. It doesn't have the robust, I guess, uptake that it had back maybe when I was a crossing guard and got to go to the dances at Cundall's, which was the big selling feature, I guess. And not the Wonderland wasn't there when I was that age, so I'll confess to that. But so some schools have this, and what is the barrier? What is the difference between schools that have a robust, assuming there are ones that have robust crossing guard programs, and those that don't? Like, is there something that's been evaluated? Like, what's making it work at school X and not at school Y?
As Kevin has explained, he had and abandoned it due to student safety. I'm not aware, and maybe if Kevin, are you aware if we still have any active programs?
I'm not aware of having any active foot patroller programs in our Barrie schools. One of the issues that we were dealing with is that the sheer volume and lack of, I'm going to use this word, lack of respect of parents driving near school communities. I were not putting students at risk. I even changed as a principal, not having students at entrances to our buildings at the beginning and end of the day, and assigned staff to be supervisors. And they're also being abused by parents and not following the rules. So there's a lot of issue putting a 12 or a 13-year-old student in that line, and I wasn't willing to do that. One of the pieces I did want to acknowledge, though, we, as far as I'm concerned, we have a really great working relationship with your bylaw enforcement officers. As a principal, whenever I had any specific concerns, I would call bylaw enforcement, and the next day they would be there. And they would give us the warning so we could send out the little e-blast to our community saying, be prepared, tickets are coming. So that relationship is actually very strong and robust. And I would just kudos to your bylaw staff, City of Barrie Police as well. If we felt that it was a safety issue and speeding was an issue in our neighborhood, we would contact them and they would bring a cruiser on site and would be there to support. So there are those pieces that are in place and are working well. So just kudos to those people.
Great, thank you. Maybe one quick one. You mentioned.
Oh, Councillor, do you want to hear from the public board? That's okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. And we are operating the same. We are experiencing the same with the parent interactions and the same. We don't have the foot patrols, and that is one of the driving factors behind that.
And that's great to know. And I wasn't aware of the level of challenges and if the parents are the primary reason that we're not able to embrace programs that worked for many years and worked effectively to help younger students and create that, mentorship for older students, helping younger students cross streets. It's disappointing, but I understand. Just curious, on the other side of safety buses, and just, is it mandatory to have crossing guards on buses, and is that default to students, or is that still students do that?
It is a school's responsibility to sign up with CAA and get the safety patroller training for your buses. So yes, it would be our responsibility to do that. We encourage that every one of our buses has a safety patroller to be able to coordinate that. City of Barrie Police would then come on site and do the training for those individuals. This is how you would get on a bus, get off a bus, direct students on and off. We can't guarantee there was always a bus patroller on duty because, again, you have a high interest at the beginning and then mid-year it dies off. You try to do training again. It's just a process of trying to motivate. So as a school, we would still offer the hot chocolates as a support for our patrollers. The City of Barrie still offers the movie day, at the end of the year for patrollers and all of those things. So it is just trying to engage our student population, getting our parents on board to support it as well, and just keep it as active and vibrant as we can.
Great. That effort's appreciated. Thank you. Just maybe it's been mentioned about design, and we get the same feedback, and when we hear from our traffic partners around traffic calming, the best measure is a well-designed road and a well-designed community. And I obviously, same for you, probably a well-designed school. You probably have ones that you realize, oh my gosh, who designed that? And that's just a nightmare for you guys. In the realm of the possible, I'd like to think designing a school to accommodate today's parent behavior as far as driving to school, which is different than when I was in elementary school, certainly. In that sense that it's possible. I also recognize, and Mayor Nuttall might be able to correct me if I'm off a little bit, there was a provincial fund that allowed for school boards to apply for funding to help with, I think, more modernized schools and modernized schooling. So I'm wondering if either of the school boards were put in for that funding, and also, are we seeing hope that the schools that are being designed today with the understanding of how parents and kids get to school, are they performing better than the ones that were designed at a time that wasn't the behavior of the parent and getting kids to school. Are at least hopefully seeing that?
With respect to the funding, I'm only aware of 3 funding streams. I talked to 2 of them earlier, and the other one is capital priorities whenever we're building new builds or additions. So the funding stream that you refer to, I'm not aware of that and not aware of boards having access to that. Can you repeat your other question? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, with the notable change in how students get to school, how parents are involved with driving, are we seeing hope that the school designed in the last 10 years are performing better than the ones that were designed, 40 years ago?
So we're always, with every new design, we're always experimenting with new ideas and trying to cope with today's world. However, I think I've indicated multiple times, it's very difficult for us to try on the site sizes that we have to accommodate the volume. The volume is too much for the sites that we're doing. And when you factor in the fact that most of our sites do have to support busing as well, now you're trying to get that volume into a small site, 5-6 acres, and you're trying to accommodate buses, trying to isolate buses so that we can get them safely in and out, and then try to manage up to 200-300 cars as well. And that's just, I invite anyone to provide design ideas, but we've looked at many, and we're involved provincially in organizations. We as boards collaborate, all 72 boards in Ontario, through various committees as well. So we have access to not only our designs, but designs that are occurring all through the province. And this is just not the solution to this problem is trying to change the mindset out there. That's the solution to this problem. It's not through school design.
Through you, Chair. It's an interesting discussion piece, but as far as the funding part goes, the most recent funding, in addition to everything else, was COVID funding for ventilation, and that was specific for that factor or that use. But as to the design for older schools versus newer schools, a lot of that has to do with enrollment. And if you're in a school such as in the South End, either west or east, if your enrollment is high, then incredible pressures on no matter what your design is. If you're in a more mature neighborhood, you may find less, depending on whether, in our case, for some of our schools, they act as holding schools for subdivisions that are coming along, and we don't have new schools put in place in those locations. So the enrollment is a pressure point for us, and that means it's relieved with capital projects that have people go to school in their own neighborhoods, and that is our goal. But as we've already discussed, that is not a guarantee that people are going to go to school in their neighborhood without a ride to school from mom or dad trying to get to, or somebody else in the family trying to get them there.
Thank you. Metal, do you know maybe the letter that I was referring to around the provincial funding? If I got that wrong, I apologize.
Yeah, I believe the last call for funding for schools, there was a piece that was identifying schools provide more modern approaches inside of high density buildings in urban areas, or co-location between numerous schools, school boards, etc. I think that's what you're referring to. And we identified that in our information we'd like to send the Minister for Municipal Affairs, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Transportation, alongside the site on Essa Road. So I think that's what you're referring to.
Thank you. So yeah, I was trying to find the document, but because it made me think about that. Just I'd like to think of some hope in the design of schools that we can make them work better given the parameter of today. So thank you. And maybe, maybe final comments, more of a comment than a question. Thank you, Chair Morales, for the time and consideration. Is that as a municipality, we're being asked continually to more efficiently use the land that's available? And the answer is generally going up. So maybe it is a question. Is elementary schools have generally been, in the generation that I've been in, a single story, but we know historically there have been two stories that we actually, a couple of them have been torn down, King Edward and Prince of Wales. Is there a move to your comments about lack of land? Is there a move to our moving elementary schools to going up and starting to have them be more than one story? Is that one of the potential options for design?
We do have, most of our schools are two-story. We have one three-story, and I know the public board has many three-story schools in the city of Barrie. So we're not adverse to going vertical, but you do pay a premium. Once you exceed 2 stories, then you get into structural premiums. So now you're into government funding again, right? So there's always reasons why we're kind of working with what we're working with, right?
Yeah, I can confirm that, yes, we are maximizing the size of schools that we are putting on these 5 and 6 acre sites, which then the more volume of individuals that you put onto that site, the greater a volume of students and traffic that are going to be coming to that site. So it all goes back to the previous comments with regards to volume. Volume is the big pressure.
And maybe if I could just add, one of the other things that we're both dealing with that wasn't something that we dealt with previously is once the Ministry of Education took on childcare, now we're also including usually 2-3 room childcare. So that takes up more footprint on our site and brings in more traffic. Fortunately, the traffic usually isn't coming in and out at the same time, the peak times for the school. But it does end up taking up more footprint to the building, and it comes with some challenges around traffic flow as well, because they need their own specific access and all the rest of it, the dedicated parking and all the such. So once we did take on childcare, it created a little bit more stress for our sites as well.
Thank you very much. That's all I have. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can be allies and kind of working better in the city of Barrie to make better decisions about where the school is placed. I heard that very clearly, that's a big challenge and one of the first steps. So thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to continue on the list. I just want to let members of the committee and non-committee know we're going to lose Mayor Nettle at 6 p.m. And he's just has some feedback on some of the items held. So you know what I meant. And the deputy mayor, so do we lose quorum, Ms. Cook? No? Just go. Okay, just basically go. Okay, okay, so I've got Councillor Nixon next, then Councillor Riepma and Councillor Hamilton. I saw your hand and through the miming. Do you have a quick follow-up?
It was just a follow-up, but I can wait my turn.
You can wait it? Okay, perfect. Councillor Nixon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales. This is more directed to the public board because there was some conversation last year that started with Councillor Riepma and I approaching Trustee Strawn, and who she organized a Zoom meeting with I guess 3 or 4, and maybe some of you were here that were part of that Zoom meeting that we had. And the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the possibility of older high school students, maybe 11 and grade 11 and 12, be given City of Barrie bus passes, and the whole purpose of the discussion was to somehow try to, increase safety by reducing the number of buses. And it was, the conversation I thought went well. Both sides seem to be fairly optimistic about at least studying the situation. And it wouldn't work, obviously, the school would obviously have to be on a bus route, number one. But with the amount of high school students in Barrie now, even if it was 10-20% of the older high school kids, and just out of curiosity, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but how many high school students would be in Barrie at this, give or take a rough number? How many? Just with the public board. Quick guess.
Roughly around 7,000.
About 7,000, yeah. So if we're just going to say that, half of them are in grades 9 and 10, the other half are in 11 and 12. 3,500, if you could take, 300 or 400 high school kids and have them get to school on a city bus, rather than, on a blue bus instead of a yellow bus, that would certainly reduce the number of buses. It would reduce the number of buses trying to park. If there's fewer buses around the school, it's safer. Not to mention the environmental reasons, but I'm curious as if any of you know if that went anywhere. Were there discussions? Is it something that's still worth talking about, or because we'd certainly like to do that.
Councillor Nixon, I'll start with Ms. James Reed. She put up her hand, and then we'll go to the CDSP.
Thank you, Chair Morales, and through you to Councillor Nixon. I recall that meeting well because you were at the meeting with Councillor Rietma as well. So we, as the city and the community, the transit department is really committed to doing this, and we were in conversations with the Simcoe County School Board on a pilot basis. And the way the meeting left was that it was just left with the school board to pursue and get back to us. But we're really committed to doing this. In the meantime, I've had a conversation recently at the Mayor's Chamber lunch with a school board representative, Lynn Strawn, and we've been kind of brainstorming some ideas because she was also part of that initiative, with the potential to get into the schools and promote our License to Ride program. So as council members will know, that's the program that we offer in partnership with the rec department in the summers for students to ride the bus and use our rec centers for free. So the suggestion was that we start with that and we try to get into the schools with some of our staff to try to register the students, get them informed as to what the program is, to try to drive some interest and to try to use the buses throughout the summer period. And then if that is successful, we would be proposing to come back to council with a decision point to potentially look at piloting the License to Ride with the school board, whether we start with a few schools or whether it's broader, but throughout longer periods, not just the summer. So that's kind of how it was left from my perspective, if that's helpful information.
Very much so. Thank you.
This is yes, Mr. Dance.
Thank you. And through you, there is a pilot, as has been mentioned, that is going to start a survey at one of our high schools on a limited basis to see if there's uptake from students. It would be within city limits, but it's one that we're expecting that survey to go in the next several weeks. But it would be, has gotten some legs with regards to that, and it's been working with our superintendent responsible for transportation, and the consortium is quite aware of it.
Thank you very much. And if it does get off the ground, then perhaps we can continue a conversation with the Catholic Board as well, and the more the merrier. But yeah, it's definitely something that we look forward to moving along with for the obvious reasons. But if we can get kids starting to ride public transit at a younger age they get used to it, and it allows them to get to their job after school. Parents don't have to drive them, take the morning off to take them to a dentist appointment, and all, there's a lot of good reasons for it. Not to mention the blue buses run on snow days, so it there's definitely some advantages. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Councillor Rietma.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Morales. And I would really very much encourage both organizations to carry on and have a good hard look at how we could implement using the city buses, because I think that's a win for everybody. And first of all, I mean, I must say it's great that you're here, and it's great that I hear that there's some good communication and good working relationship between the city and the school boards. I think you are a big part of the city. There's a whole lot of kids go to school, and a whole lot of parents are concerned about safety. And so I guess my first question is there I hear that people talk to each other, and I understand that. But do we have a sort of at the staff level kind of a formal, I don't know, meeting once in a while with the school boards? Like, is that something that is ongoing, formalized?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Reitman, absolutely. We have, I think it's around quarterly, I think that it is, that we connect and we go over all sorts of different things, development applications, hot topics, anything that the school board wants to bring to us.
Great. I'm really glad to hear that. I think that's something that helps build relationships, and that's important. I have there's one thing that in my ward, Ward 1, that I have never understood. And perhaps you can help me with it. We have I'm thinking of 4 schools: St. Monica's, Steele Street, Codrington, and Johnson. And all of them have the drive-by, drop-off zone, if you will, the kiss and ride. 3 of the schools don't use them. And the only one that does is Johnson Street. And is there some sense as to why you use one and you don't use the other 3? Like, I'm just wondering if there's something that you could help me understand.
I can start. I think I'd have to take that back. I'd have to go and talk to the principals themselves. A lot of that is determined by the administration itself. Some of it is also the design of the site as well. All 3 of those schools you mentioned, they weren't initially designed with a kiss and ride. That would have came later. They're of a vintage where it wasn't necessarily a thing. So those are the 2 main reasons. Other reasons can be yeah, and size of school, what the population is, behavior of that specific community.
Go ahead. Muskoka.
Being the ex-principal of St. Monica's, I can say the kiss and ride at St. Monica's is active. We do use it every day. It's the communication strategy out there and basically saying to the parents, it's a kiss and ride. It's not a parking zone. And doing that whole reinforcement is part of the issue. So we've assigned staff to supervise the kiss and ride and directing the traffic, doing the mapping and everything out there. So it is active. We do our best to enforce, but again, it's volume and compliance that we're dealing with mostly.
Mr. Chairman, if we could only change public behavior, it'd be a whole lot easier to deal with. I have just one other question. We're going to next year rebuild Codrington Street right in front of the school. And the design is being worked on now. Do you have any advice for our engineers when they're rebuilding that road in front? And I guess connected to that is, during the design process, are you connected to our engineers as they do the work?
We have had conversations with regards to servicing and connections and whatnot. As far as advice we would give them, I think we would rely on our traffic engineers to speak with the engineers involved in the project.
Councillor Hamilton.
I'll be short and sweet. I'll change my questions to comments, and through you, Chair Morales. First of all, thank you for coming and sitting here for 2 hours and being blasted with questions. I do think this is helpful from a learning standpoint. I do worry that we actually haven't accomplished much other than us around the table have learned a lot. I don't know if I can go back to my residents and say, yes, we're going to do A, B, and C. So I do hope I understand you meet with staff on a quarterly basis, that we can come up with some clear actions. Like for me, when we're talking about the foot patrollers, I know it's complex, but rather than excuses, like what are the solutions? What are the options? And some schools do it well, not foot patrollers, but I have one school in my ward that has a kiss and ride program. And it's like your school, the principals out there in Avest, the vice principals out there in Avest, the teachers are out there, people are in and out and it's smooth sailing. And I don't have any safety issues there whatsoever because there's teachers present, adult presence, directing the flow of traffic. Where's the accountability for every single school to be conducting that? What are the expectations of the school? So that to me is missing. So I hope this conversation can continue. I hope we can come up with some really clear solutions that we can get behind. I appreciate the offer of coming every 8 months or something here, sure, to learn, but to me, that's not enough. I love the idea of a work group. So I would again encourage the safety committee, if there's some tangible items we can actually pull from this to say, let's get a work group going. Let's identify 1 or 2 things that we're all going to sit around a table outside of these quarters and actually come up with with real ideas and not just finger pointing and we can't do this and liability and no cost. There's things we can do. Let's figure it out. And lastly, maybe that's it for now. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
I regret not going to you first. Thank you for that, Councillor Hamilton. So there's no motions, there's nothing to receive. There wasn't even a presentation. This was just a brainstorm. Okay, so thank you for your time. Go ahead.
Part of what you had indicated is looking for some direction possibly from the city where you can support the school. One of the things I, as a principal, really appreciated, I had been in regular contact with your transportation people and worked through the bus transportation pieces and the plans that the city had done in organizing field trips. So you can get on city transit, go to a facility, like phenomenal work. I have to say thank you for all of the work with that. One of the pieces that I was struggling with as a principal is I got the bus passes, right? So we get 3 bus passes. We can take an entire class and a teacher on a city transit to do a field trip. But we're asking staff who may not live in the city of Barrie to go on transit that they've never even experienced. And then we're wanting to encourage students to get on transit that they may never have been on before. They're newcomers into our community. So one thing that perhaps the city could work on with some of the Barrie schools is perhaps organize a city bus to come on site during the day and allow that opportunity for staff and students to get on a bus, perhaps go on a little field trip as part of an exercise and experience within the city. So if that, I think that would be a really great exercise for staff and students. Invite parents, let them experience that as an exercise. It may open the door.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And again, thank you for attending. I'll just make some very, very quick comments. This might be a school issue, but you see this a lot between governments where an issue falls into that no man's land. That kind of like, no, that's the feds, that's the province, that's the municipality. So this is what's kind of happening with this issue. So I think most of us, if not all of us, know that. So no one is inherently blaming either school board. No one is doing the us versus them. So while I definitely want as many outcomes as Councillor Hamilton does, and a lot of people do, I think this is a good way to start. Nurture those relationships, as the mayor said, move forward, but specifically for the outcomes. Not to say that we did the meeting for us to be able to put in our newsletter, tell our residents, but to show like, hey, we tried this and it failed. Like failing is not bad if you either learn something from it or you're giving an honest effort to try to do that. So I know that we definitely, that our goal is to move forward and ensure that we can kind of have that outcome. Mayor Nuttall, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, that you're dead on. And I think that Councillor Hamilton was dead on. And, you know, as we are going to be finishing our conversations in the next couple of months around KPIs, I think that this is one of the places that we can come up with a community safety KPI. I don't know what it is exactly as I sit here and say that. I don't know if it's unlit intersection or unlit crossings, either lit or guarded in one way or another. I don't know the exactness of the KPIs, but when I'm thinking about community safety, it's if not number one, it's in the top 2 or 3 in the city that you hear about as members of council, and that I hear about in the mayor's office. So that would just be some feedback for us to have a discussion as a community safety committee, and then move forward on.
Great. Thanks so much for attending the meeting. So at this point, we will move on. We've got 6 minutes for 2 of our members of committee. So 5.2 was held. And this was the referral. This was the correspondence from the Grey Highlands school bus armed cameras. And this was held by Ms. Cook. Could you refresh my mind? Councillor Corso, go ahead.
Yeah, so the reason why I held this is because as great conversation ender on having our school boards come and visit us, is I receive a vast amount of complaints regarding school bus safety. And it is, as I like to say, above our pay grade, because it is a ministry issue. But as always, we like to share our issues and challenges that we have with our other levels of government. I have attempted to reach out to discuss it with our other levels of government on multiple occasions, and have not been successful. I have been rerouted to MTO with a contact, and again have been unsuccessful in connecting with that person as well. So I know that this council is not a fan of sending letters. But at the same time, I think that there is definitely a conversation to be had and some action to be taken to support the letter that was sent by it was Grey County? Yeah, that I think that we need to push the Grey Highlands. I think that we need to have, I would like to add our voice in whatever way that we can to ensure that message gets received, because kids are getting pretty close to clipped. So it is a serious issue.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilor Marino.
So like, I don't know if cameras help or don't help on school buses. I gotta be honest, I just don't know. I don't have data that says they do or don't. If people aren't following the laws around school buses, the camera may help, I guess, find them in a future time, and hopefully penalize them for not following those laws. When it comes to the intergovernmental relations side, the Minister of Transportation is somebody we have great access to. And we also have folks who work in intergovernmental affairs here that can definitely help facilitate those requests to the provincial government or federal government if it's federal. And certainly have for us in terms of the housing side. So if there's a conversation that you'd like to take into a more granular level with the Minister of Transportation, or I think that you were saying it probably started with the Minister of Education and now then graduated on to the Minister of Transportation, is that?
No, I contacted our local one of our local MPPs, or I attempted to contact several times one of our local MPPs to have that conversation. Their office then referred me to a contact at MTO, which I attempted to contact and could not get a hold of either at this point.
Okay, so if you'd like some support and help on that, I can definitely help, but I know that Rebecca and her team can help as well. And I think that the conversations around intergovernmental relations start here, around our table, and then they grow out. And if there's things that we're just not getting an answer on, like it does require coming to the team and trying to figure that out going forward. So I'm not sure for me on the actual piece itself, like I don't know if that helps or doesn't help. So I don't want to take a position on it. If you were to ask me to choose between putting an IPS, intersection pedestrian signal, we got one on Hearst Drive, Mr. Prowse, you remember that? You do. And it's the controlled intersection. It's the signals. It's like I press the button, it goes red on the road, I cross the street. And video cameras on buses. If there was funding available, I'd choose more intersections being controlled. That doesn't mean that we can't do both. I just don't know what the funding envelopes are or aren't. And so I think that for me, like I don't want to just send off a letter to the minister. I'd rather have an actual conversation with the minister to say, what do you have to make things safer? What are the tools in your tool belt that we can be part of to make it safer? And if we come back and he says, you know what, I need X, Y, and Z and the cameras, or I need something else, and let's go that way. But I think that having that conversation with them before we send the letter would make it more received when they get it.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I would just like to have the conversation because I haven't been able to crack that nut. And we've been reminded again at the table to reach out to our levels of government that we have and to have these conversations before we fire off letters. That was said several times. And I've attempted and I have not been able to get anybody to have a conversation with me. So yeah, that would be wonderful.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Thank you, Councilor Corser. And yeah, might I suggest you, Mayor Nuttall, you assist Councilor Corser in doing that. And then depending on the outcome of that, you can always bring that in for discussion. That does it with, like, we can let this go and you can bring it back. Yeah.
Well, this was supposed to be an item for discussion to actually have that letter sent. That was the intent, but I guess it never quite manifested that way. So that might have been absolutely on me. But yeah, it was referred to
Got
the
it.
committee.
With that intent,
Yeah,
not, yeah,
with
not the
that
wording.
intent,
Got it. Okay,
yes.
perfect. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Nuttall.
So while it's referred to the committee, maybe the answer is to defer this to another meeting.
Okay.
And in the interim, if we don't make any headway, then at least we've called the right numbers or emailed the
Yep.
right addresses.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yep. Could I have a defer motion to the next community safety meeting from a committee member?
Also move.
I'll go with that enthusiasm. Deputy Mayor Thompson. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that enthusiasm. Deputy Mayor Thompson and referred and seconded by Mayor Nuttall. All those in favor, please indicate. Okay, that passes. I'm just going really fast because we're gonna lose 2 people and we've got another one that was held. Establishing consistent stakeholder invites 8.1. Mayor Nuttall.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize. My computer has died since I was looking at the agenda. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for helping me. I just wanted to make sure as we're doing these invites. So we've now at the budget asked the police service to come to community safety. The downtown BIA asking for community safety, and then traffic, which is our own city staff, come as well. Is the intention that they come at the same time? And if so, do the existing motions that have now been adopted by council mean that we don't need a third one?
Great question. Mayor Nuttall, through you, the Councilor Corser and I's motion, the one you're reading, that was in the pipeline since late September, early October. I don't know when Councilor Hamilton had hers, but it's definitely different. So there's definitely efficiency, AKA it's already been done for police. Just to quickly clarify, so we can take the police out is what I'm saying. Is yours did not include, did yours include the BIA? Okay, so the BIA isn't, so we could leave the BIA and traffic, nothing was done, I didn't miss anything. Okay, so we can definitely quickly make a change there for the and take out the police. And again, I'm the chair, so I'd have to step away to move a motion, but if a member of committee would do an amendment to swap out police and put in school boards 3 times per term or whatever timeline you feel comfortable with, that would be good.
There was just a second part of the question, which was, did you want them the same night? So like, is the point to have traffic the same night as Barrie Police and perhaps school boards?
Personally speaking, I like Councilor Corser because she's also a sponsor. There is definitely an intent that there's synergies I hate that word. There's synergies between Barrie Police and traffic, even though they're different, but they can be the same. I don't know if traffic and BIA necessarily have to be on the same night, but Barrie Police and traffic, right? There's deficiencies there.
So can I propose some wording that may fit what we're talking about here, which is that the following organizations and city staff be invited to provide 2 presentations a year to the Community Safety Committee on the same evening. The traffic city staff and the Barrie Police Service. And would you like the school boards on there as well?
There would be efficiency
As well as the school boards. And then that would be A, and then B, that the downtown BIA also be invited to provide 2 presentations per year to the Community Safety Committee on a different evening.
Perfect. As so read. Any members of the committee have any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Corson.
Just to add clarity and for my intent of sponsoring this motion was to ensure that my ideal is to have traffic and police services at the table at the same time, only specifically about the aggressive drivers, the problems we have on the streets, not to do with governance or KPIs in the sense of budgeting, but specifically about the issues we were having last summer, in the fall, as we're seeing now. And as summer comes up again, we know that those are the hot times of the most difficult challenges that we have on our roads when it comes to driving. So I'm disappointed we're coming this late in the game to have them at the table, but to even put this forward, because I was hoping that we could have some resolutions, some ideas, some action items before spring and summer came, because of the challenges that we have on the streets. And I believe we cannot police our way out of this. I think it's a planning issue as well. So to have both at the table, to have that conversation exclusively separate than the KPIs of budgets is important for what I had put forth.
Councilor Corser, and I'm asking this to you as a co-sponsor, would you want to split the difference? One of the meetings is traffic, one of the meetings for Barrie Police is traffic focused. And then one of the meetings can be operations in general, which means that like antisocial behavior, crime, et cetera, is the focus. But if traffic kind of spills over, then so be it.
No, I really wanted, just to be clear, the motivation of me to sponsor this was to have traffic and police at the table to deal with issues that we're having on the streets. As we all know, I'm so sorry. The communications has sent out a letter, like a press release today, today, that we are having a lot of issues right now. So I really wanted something very specific, very public, very open.
So let me clarify about splitting the difference. Would you be amicable, and it's okay if you're not, but would you be amicable if one of the two meetings that Barrie Police and traffic have to come to is for traffic?
Yes.
One of the meetings per year, and then the other one can just be for Barrie Police, can be other issues.
I would like to have, if possible, the priority right now be traffic.
Okay, so I think that answers the question, Mayor Nuttall. The motion does not have synergy with Councilor Hamilton's thing, and then Councilor Hamilton's thing will be its own focus on operations.
I'm thrilled to have them all here all the time to have these conversations for sure, because it's a huge part of community, but that I think it just feel that the traffic piece is very urgent right now.
Go ahead, Mayor Nuttall.
I believe the wording the proposed actually does what Councilor Corser was saying, which was 2 presentations per year on the same evening between police and traffic city staff. So what her request was is being fulfilled here. And I don't think necessarily those people are the same. It's not the same folks from the police department aren't going to show up for budget as show up for traffic. And likely the same folks for analyzing data aren't going to be the same ones that show up for traffic.
Okay, perfect. Ms. Cook, just to clarify, because I was a lot verbally there. I think, so we're going to stick with what's printed, but the school board is going to be added to that, and they're going to do, 3 times every 4 years. So essentially one of those meetings, 1.5-ish every year, we're just going to align and make sure the school board comes on that night. Perfect. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate. Okay, that passes. Ms. Cook, was that the only item held?
Chair Morales, I did not pick up on this at the beginning of the meeting, but Councillor Nixon held the next item, and he can't because he's not a member of the committee. So my apologies for not picking up on that at the beginning.
Love it. That's on me. Don't hold items you're not a committee. That's okay. So it passed. You could speak to it at general committee. I did let you. You're right. So all items have been approved at this point. So we will adjourn at 6:09 p.m. Thank you.
That was the update from the City Hall. Thank you for watching.